go over an example of, how the easy button works now. So we're just going to start from blank Revit. We're going to create a new project. We're not going to use any template. So we're starting from like bare bones scratch. First thing we're going to do is we're going to link in an architectural model. So here's a small school. The easy button does a lot of calculations, so it takes a long time to run. So we're going to do a much smaller school than standard, so it can go a little bit quicker for our webinar. But here it is. It's a very simple building, 2 stories, no windows on the top floor, very few windows. Very simple layout. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to hit the easy button. And so what the easy button is going to do is it's going to acquire coordinates from this model. So you get your location and your building orientation for your loads. It's going to set this model to room bounding. So it'll take your space. So it'll take, so your spaces will be contained. And then it's going to copy over all the levels that you have rooms on. If there's a room on the level, you're going to need it in your project. So it just copies that over and creates a ceiling view and a floor view so that you can look at it. Now, sometimes architects go a little level crazy. So it doesn't copy over every level, just the level with rooms on them. And then basically it's just going to run the Ripple HVAC toolkit in order. It's going to set default settings. It's going to place spaces. It's going to assign occupancy categories based on the room name. It's going to look for internal loads. It's going to run loads. It's going to set default construction types, U values and R values based on the project location on the climate zone. Then it's going to zone the project. It's going to lay out diffusers and then select VAVs and place VAVs. It's also going to do 2 things that you haven't seen yet. It's going to place air handling units and shafts. So we'll just go through the pop-ups here. It's set default settings, new spaces. It's about a 10,000 square foot school. It assigned space types. So we've got some open offices. We have a gym. We have some classrooms. Pretty standard school. It didn't find any internal loads because I don't have an electrical model linked in. So it's just going to use the default space type internal loads. It's going to set climate zone 5 and marine 4 code minimum overrides. So this is in climate zone 5. It's going to run the CFM. It ran loads, and now it's going to drop an air handling unit on the roof. And that is something that we'll talk about. But you get a nice loads report here that you could look through, but I just find it easier to look at the schedules than look at this. So let's look at some outputs. So ceiling plans. So I copied over the 1st and 2nd floor ceiling plans and made these for us. So we've got diffusers laid out in all the spaces. We've got VAVs selected. Note that it picked electric VAVs for this. We've got diffusers laid out, CFMs assigned. And how it does all this, the zoning, the VAV selection, the diffuser layouts, those are gone over in the webinar, and there's a link in the comments to all these. It's like an hour-long webinar for each of these components. So if you want to look and see all the assumptions made when doing that, you can go and watch those webinars. But we're going to focus on the new features. So the new features are going to be the air handling unit and then the ducts that are placed in the model. So let's look at all our schedules. We've got all of our schedules in here. Let's look at the air handling unit schedule. So this is just a generic air handling unit schedule. Nothing's actually selected. Just all of the inputs have been figured out from the project and just dumped into here. So notice, like, we know the total airflow, we know the outdoor airflow, but we don't know what the motor horsepower is. And the manufacturer just says generic here. Eventually this will say Carrier or Train or Daikin or Aeon, and it will have a real fan selection in here with a real motor horsepowers and real coil selections, real pressure drops, all that. But for right now, I just wanted to get something in there because it's helpful to get those generic sizes out to the architect quickly. So it drops, it doesn't make any like sense where it drops the unit. It just kind of drops it on a space in the zone. So that's always going to be wrong. So you're going to have to move that to where you want it. So let's just say here, we're going to move that to the middle of the building about. And then we can, you know, move the shaft ductwork over, and then let's see what that looks like. Okay, so here's the shaft size from the roof to the second floor, and then here's from the second floor to the first floor. So we can move that over too. Okay, so we can select this, rotate it. Let's see, and we'll put it right there. So really quickly, a couple minutes into getting the model, we can go back to the architect and say, look, here's what the rooftop unit, here's about how big it is. You can decide if you want to do screening or whatever. And we need a shaft about this size, you know, and so it gets really good information in there quickly.